Morning, folks. Welcome to another new week. Apologies for not having the daily devotional available for Saturday. Today we're going to continue thinking about prayer and the whole area of supplication and bringing requests to God. On Friday we were thinking about praying for our families. Today I want us to think about praying for our church and particularly praying for our minister. If you turn to Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 19, Paul is dealing with the subject of prayer. And he says in that verse, "Pray also for me, that words may be given to me in opening my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak." The Apostle Paul was a man who prayed much for the churches with which he was associated. And it's evident that he wanted the churches to pray for themselves. And we ought to be praying for our church and in that context also for our pastor. Paul's desire, as he writes to the Ephesians, is that they would pray for him so that God would give him words to speak and he would give him the ability to speak those words, particularly when it came to having to say things that were difficult to say. I, as your pastor, covet your prayers. I long for you to continue to pray for me. And as you're praying, pray that God would give me the right words to say, that he would give me understanding of the passage with which I'm dealing, that he would give me the ability to put that into words that are easy for those who are listening to understand, and particularly that he would enable me to see the practical application of this passage to all of our lives. So you should be praying for your minister and praying for him regularly. But you should also pray for one another. In a number of Paul's letters, this is what he says: pray for one another. Each of us in our congregations are fairly well familiar with the circumstances of others in the congregation, and we ought to pray for them in their specific needs. And just as I was saying when we were thinking about our physical family, that our prayers should focus especially on spiritual needs, so too it should be the case when we come to our spiritual family, the church. We should be praying for the spiritual development of individuals within our congregation. We should be praying that God would cause our congregation to grow in love one for the other, but also to grow spiritually and to grow numerically. We should be praying for our church's witness in the local community and bringing that before God. So here's another aspect of supplication: praying for our families, praying for our own spiritual development, and praying for our church. May God help us to take these things and to use them in our daily devotions for God's glory. Every blessing today, brethren.